Alright, so the renders are finished. All my folders are full of their 30 frames. I double click on one of these, I can just arrow through and see all 30 frames. Each of these, which I'm not going to do because I've got better things to do. You'll just have to trust me. Yes, indeed, they're all animated. Now, these are not animations, these are all image sequences. So when I load them up in After Effects, I just go right click, import. I'm just gonna do this one at a time so I can keep track of them all. File, and I'm gonna skip the beauty and go straight to diffuse. And I click on the first one on my sequence. And down here, I have to make sure that PNG sequence, if I'm using PNGs, is checked. If it's not checked, it'll import this image by itself and ignore all the others. Turn on PNG sequence, it'll select all of them and bring them together as an image sequence. This is why I tell it to use a file instead of a multiple file, because I don't want to bring these in as multiple individual files. I want to bring them in as one single image sequence. So I hit import. I'm going to drag this down into my layers section, and that creates the composition with the 1 second length, 30 frames, 1 second. Hit space bar. I can watch my shadow down here wiggle around with the light as it moves. Now, if I'm not 100% happy with the shadow down here, and I want to make some adjustments to it, well, the problem is, if I were to right-click, import file, my shadow matte, it's not just going to automatically replace it. I have to first get rid of the shadow on this. And there's a bit of a trick to doing that. First things first, I only want to do that to, say, my tablecloth right here. If I'm fine with my shadows everywhere else, if I've actually got shadows anywhere else, I can't really see them at the moment because this is solid black. But if I was fine with the shadows everywhere else, let's say, and I only want to remove the shadows on the tablecloth, well, that's what my ID render is for. So grab the first PNG sequence, and it's grayscale, which means I can go to Effect, Color Correction. I'll go to Curves right here, and this says at black it's black and at white it's white, basically. If I were to bring this down, white would turn to black. Bring this up here in the middle, mid-gray turns to white. And I can just move this around until I can be sure that the tablecloth is white, and pull this to the left until everything that is not tablecloth becomes black. There. Control-0 to go back to my project window right there. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to place this below my shadow matte. I'm going to tell my shadow matte layer, where it says no matte right here, I'm going to tell it to use the one directly beneath it as its matte. And over here, it's set to alpha matte, which I don't have any alphas in this. I didn't save any alphas. I'm going to tell it instead to use Luma matte. And if I turn that off and on again, is only showing this on my tablecloth now because that is what this looks like. Next, let's see, I need to lighten this a little bit, so I'm going to add. If I press T on my keyboard, I can open up my opacity, and I'll set this down to like 10%, and now my shadow is gone. Well, mostly. If I hit space bar, you can kind of see it show up every now and then in some of these individual frames, but it is almost completely invisible, and you can see it right there. But that's okay, because I'm going to grab again. Actually, no, I'm going to leave this alone. I'm just going to select both of these, duplicate those. Still doing that right there. I'm going to turn this one. Well, first of all, let me just make sure that I've got my, I'm going to turn my opacity back up again so I can see it. There it is. Is that back normal? I'm going to take this one right here, and I'm going to invert it. So I'll go to Effect, Color Correction. I spend more time in Photoshop than in After Effects, so it takes me a minute to find where these things are. And levels, there's levels. If I look at this little bar right here, if I raise this up, my black gets lighter. If I bring this down here, my white gets darker. And if I swap them around, it's inverted. Now take this, multiply that, and there's a shadow. It's a much darker shadow than the original one was. If I turn off both of these, you can see what the difference is. See what that looks like. So I'm going to reduce my opacity on this one a bit, so I can control how dark and how light my shadows are with this. I can also go to Effect, Blur, throw a Gaussian blur on it, and get myself some softer shadows. Instead of having that sharp shadow edge that I got because I used a point light with basic settings, I now have a soft edge on my shadow, and I can control how bright I want this thing, how dark it is, get whatever effect I like for that. It is now completely under my control, as opposed to the one that came with it by default. Now I can start adding in some of those other layers. So back to File, Vector Direct, I'll grab that one, PNG Sequence, throw this on top, and just like when I did my forest sphere lesson, all of these I just set them to screen, and now they show up in here. Once again, the reason why I do it individually like this is I can control each one of these separately. So I'll go ahead and add my indirect in. Green, because there's their own separate layers, I can go to Effect, Color Correction, Levels, and I can adjust this however I want. I want this to be brighter, I can just make them a little bit brighter. I'll make them darker, make them a little bit darker. Import, File, Subsurface Scattering. Throw that on here, and just like the others, I'll set that to Screen. The thing with the subsurface scattering is I don't really like how speckledy it looked. I probably could have made that better by increasing my quality for my subsurface scattering in Maya before I rendered it, but that would have taken forever. So instead I've got this constantly twitching blur of speckles, a little swarm of dots. If I want to do something about that, with this layer selected, I can go to Blur, Gaussian blur on that, and blur that until it's smoother. But the problem is, because I blurred it, it's blurring outside the edge. If it was, it probably wouldn't be to this extent. So guess what? Once again, ID to the rescue. Throw that in here. Effect, color correction, curves. And that's a pretty dark section, so I should be able to adjust that. There you go. Put that beneath that. Turn that off. And so now I use that as the matte, aluminum matte. So now it's only going to show up where the candle was. That looks better already. Before I do my glowing candle, I'm going to grab my background image because I want to show something when I do that. My background in here. Oh no, I can't see my background. Why? Well, because in Maya, I forgot to remove this in the back. I did not tell it to not render this. I should have gone to the wrong thing. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing right here. I should have gone to the attribute editor and turned my camera to 0 so I wouldn't see that, but I didn't do that. So now I have to fix that in After Effects. But once again, same fix we've been doing, only this time it's going to be even easier. I'm going to grab my ID again. I'll throw that on top so I can see it first. And I want everything to be white except for the background. And I don't even need to use the curves for that. I can go to Effect, Color Correction. I can use levels and do that really fast. There, done. Throw that beneath my diffuse layer. So I'll use that as a luma. And now I can see my background behind it. Set this to fit. And now if I bring in my emission, you'll see what happened, because in my emission, it's got some of this lighter gray that came from my sky dome right here. There's a gradient on my sky dome. It's a light gray on top and black on the bottom, which means I'm getting a little bit of that light gray right here. If I set this to screen, you can see it lightens up the top of my image because I forgot to turn off my image sphere. But once again, it's an easy fix. Matter of fact, I should be able to use the same one right here. So I can go to Nomad, I'll grab this, set that to Luma, and now that's gone. So I can reuse the same Luma matte for multiple layers. And there it goes. Now, like I said before, there's a reason why I only did 30 seconds for this. I do not need to make this go any longer than that because it is just a random jitter. There is no obvious tell when it goes from beginning to end. If I hit play, you can't really tell when this starts over again. If I wanted to have a much longer sequence for this, well, I could just loop these over and over again. That gets a bit annoying with so many layers, so I'm going to right-click on all these and tell it to pre-compose. I'll call that candle. And if I go back to my original project right here, this is now all those layers compressed down into a single, easy to work with sequence. If I double click it, I can go back to my original layers, go back here so I can see they're listed right here. I probably should have named it something else. Now I can't tell the difference between them. Oh well. Composition settings, duration. If I set this to say 5 seconds and stretch this out, I can now grab this, Control D to duplicate that, and bring it over until it snaps when they touch. Control D, Control D, and Control D. And now I've got 5 seconds of candle flicker. File, save as. Let's call that candle. I don't know what else to call these things. I'm just going to call them all candle. I tend to keep these in my data folder. There. And now I've got all my sequences put together properly. I have to render this out into something I can actually work with. So I'll go to Composition. And I don't like to use Add to Render Queue. I don't get very good results from that one. Adobe Media Encoder is designed specifically for rendering out animations from the image sequences, and it does nothing else, so it is highly specialized and very good at that. Wait for it to show up. There it is. This is Adobe Media Encoder. And it's set to a preset for YouTube. And I probably don't want to use the same preset. It's going to be a bit large, but I don't see the 540 in here, so I'll just use it as is for the time being. We'll see how that looks. If I click on this one, I can tell it where to put it. I like to keep my videos that it renders in my movies section. These are the previous videos I've worked on. Save. And then just hit the little green button right here with an arrow. And hopefully 5 seconds won't take very long. Yeah, that was fast. Bring this back. Get my lessons, movies. There's my candle. A little bit blurry, I think, because I picked a size that was a little bit large, but not by much. That's how you composite an image sequence into an animated video using After Effects.